Welcome everybody to our monthly AstroDharma presentation, and this month we'll be talking about the visionary, expansive, explorative Sagittarius. Its ruler, the planet Jupiter, and the associated house, the ninth house. And this is all about our teachings on AstroDharma, where we combine Western transpersonal astrology together with Buddhist teachings, Dharma. And you can learn more about AstroDharma on our website at planetdharma.com/AstroDharma. And we have some nice free things there for you to check out more. So Sagittarius. So Sagittarius's symbol is the centaur, half man, half horse. And Sagittarius has this sense of bringing our human intellect together with the wild and free part of a horse running, galloping across a pasture, across the open steppe, we should say. And this is really key for Sagittarius. Sagittarius is very much about expansion. So running wild and free is very key for Sagittarius. What we have in Sagittarius, that's an area of our life where we need to explore, we need to feel a sense of freedom. And at the same time, Sagittarius really needs this groundedness that the animal instincts, the animal nature brings. And Sagittarius as a sign, the parts of the body that it rules are the legs, the thighs, and the bum. And so it needs this grounded strength to keep from exploring so much and so far that it kind of floats off into the ether. And this is the grounding of the Sagittarian vision, because Sagittarius has incredible visions and incredible insights, and they need to be grounded in this plane, in this reality, in order for those visions to come to fruition. So this is the ongoing challenge for Sagittarius. And one way that it can meet this challenge is by marrying it with its opposite, Virgo, which is a very grounded earth sign with really strong attention to details, not Sagittarius's forte. There are 12 signs in the zodiac, and one theory says that there are actually 6 pairs of signs. So Sagittarius is paired with Virgo, and those two go very well together. So today we'll talk a bit about Sagittarius, and then we'll talk about its ruler, Jupiter. We'll talk about the house, the ninth house. So every sign is ruled by a particular planet, which is like its ambassador in our astrological chart. And then every sign and ruling planet is associated with a house. And the house represents the part of our life that those energies manifest in. So we'll talk about all those, and then we'll open up to you for some questions and answers about how Sagittarius, Jupiter, and ninth house show up in your life and what's going on in your chart with those. So back to Sagittarius. So what we have in Sag, as I mentioned, is where we need to feel expansive. It's also an area where we have vision. So if we're seeking vision in our lives or wondering how vision plays a role in our life, we can look to Sagittarius and what's happening there to help free up those energies. The glyph for Sagittarius is the arrow. And this points to Sagittarius is always kind of has an aim, an intention, a place it's looking, a place where it's going to go. And this is so important for us, setting our intention and then exploring in that direction. And that's all very Sagittarian. It also shows how Sag can always be off going to the next place or exploring the next thing. And this is another Sagittarian challenge. There's so much excitement involved with that intimate relationships and interpersonal relations can feel so tedious by comparison because the adventure is so inviting and exciting. So if we have strong Sagittarius, I think I'm speaking for myself here, because I have Moon in Sagittarius, and Moon is about feelings and relationships. If we can look to what we have in Sagittarius to see where we may feel challenged around always going to the next thing, rather than being in the here and now and taking the time to be with intimacy and be with relationships with people who are close to us. Okay, let's talk about Jupiter, the ruling planet of Sagittarius. So Jupiter was the sky god, again, that feeling of expansiveness. And where Jupiter is in our charts is where we are expansive. Anyone who was favored by Jupiter was usually the recipient of great gifts. He was a very generous, benevolent ruler. And so where we have Jupiter in our charts is where we may receive gifts or be very generous. So that's a good place to look in our charts if we're feeling like we need a feeling of abundance. Look to Jupiter, because that will be a source of bounty for us. And it will be a place where we feel freedom and where we need freedom. So I have Jupiter in my 4th house. The 4th house is the part of our life. The shorthand for 4th house is who we are when we're at home alone. It talks about our upbringing, our family conditioning, and our situation as we grew up, and it also rules maybe our inner state, as in who we are when we're at home alone. And so Jupiter, it's interesting. I grew up in a wide open area. I grew up in the Midwest of the US, so a lot of physical space, and so a lot of feeling of openness and possibility. And now I am a meditation teacher and a spiritual teacher, so finding that expansiveness when I'm at home alone on the inside. So that's an example of how where the planet is in our charts shows up in our life. That's Jupiter in the 4th. Backtracking now to, so Jupiter was also known when he was angry to throw thunderbolts. And Jupiter had this, as Jupiter the Roman god, had this pattern of he could be over the top. When he got angry, it was scary. And Jupiter also brings that. So if we have a tendency to get over the top, we can look to Jupiter and sort of break down how that works so that we can use our understanding to apply some antidotes. It doesn't need to be that way. So this is how we use AstroDharma, as we go into our charts and our understanding of the different signs and other features, and then we can kind of take them apart and interpret them and put them back together in a more optimal way, which is really the essence of any spiritual practice. Is we understand our makeup, we understand the different components, and then we can work with those consciously and reshape them so that they're in a more benevolent kind of form, true to Jupiter. Okay, so the 9th house. The 9th house, so the 8th house related to Scorpio is all about in-depth, like getting beneath the surface of things, exploring very, very deeply. And then each house builds onto the next. So the 9th house takes what we learned with that in-depth exploration of the 8th and systematizes it. So now that we've explored this deep meaning, so how are we going to understand that? How are we going to share that with other people? How are we going to apply that to our understanding? So 9th house is about these kinds of schemata, and it relates to philosophy, to higher learning. It also relates to more mundane areas like publishing and jurisprudence, because those are basically how do we apply what we know, our understanding of human nature, how do we apply that to our daily lives, and how do we share that information. So 9th house also relates to a great way to explore this whole area is through long journeys, through international travel. And so 9th house also relates to that. That's an incredible way to expand our view of the meaning of life or the nature of humankind or of the cosmos itself. So it rules exotic locations and foreign destinations. So if we have a strong 9th house, we're going to be very likely to have explored these different areas. And if we'd like to but aren't, the ninth house is a good place to look for how can I cultivate this area of my life so that it's more present. So I'd like to backtrack a little bit. I mentioned that I have moon in Sagittarius. So let's see. Moon in Sagittarius. So moon is feeling nature and relationships. And as mentioned, that doesn't go so great with Sagittarius because Sagittarius wants to explore. And intimate relationships can often impede that. If you're having a home or building a nest and a family, then it's more challenging to go out in the world and explore. So the way these things resolve themselves in my life is my significant other is a meditation teacher, so we explore on that inner plane together. And world travel is a very important part of our teaching and always has been. So we travel together, we explore together in that way. So it's very interesting to look at our charts, and I didn't interview significant others with my chart in hand. So it's always interesting to look at our chart and look at our life and see how we got these different elements to reconcile themselves. It's also, as mentioned, Sagittarius is about marrying the intellect with the instinctual nature. And I've always been stronger in the intellect than in the physicality. And it's been very interesting for me living here at Clear Sky Retreat Center. It was a ranch before we bought it. And I got 2 horses, and they have very much helped me to ground my more intellectual inclinations with being in the body. Spend a lot more time outside, spend a lot more time with them, trying to understand the way that their minds work and the way that they're so large. You have to pay attention to how their minds and instincts work. And that's been a very joyful exploration for me. So a good example of that. And a great way to bring me back in my body, since moon rules the body. Okay, so these are some thoughts on Sagittarius and Jupiter and the ninth house. If you'd like to learn more about AstroDharma, please check out planetdharma.com/AstroDharma. And if there are any questions, we'd be delighted to take them. Yes.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
So I have North Node in Taurus in the ninth house, and I was just wondering if you could talk about ways to, like what does that look like? How can I manifest that, my North Node, through Taurus in the ninth?
So South Node is in Scorpio, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a great question. So we call our South Node our karma. It's often the situation that we were born into and our family conditioning, and has both its pros and cons, but we often experience our South Node as mostly the cons. It's sort of like too much of a good thing. It's just like, so much, get me out of here. But we can tend to get stuck there. So for you to be Scorpio in the third, okay. So yeah, third is siblings, household environment, communication. You're in marketing and communications, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to make the very conscious decision and conscious effort to go straight. The North Node is straight across from the South Node, so we have to go straight across the zodiac and thereby use everything in the zodiac to go across to the North Node, which should often feel very foreign to us because it's the opposite of where we're coming from. But you have Sun in Taurus too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. So it's going to feel very familiar to you because it's your Sun, and yet foreign. So our North Node is our Dharma. That's kind of our spiritual, our spiritual beacon, our spiritual guiding light, our spiritual destiny. So for Taurus is all about body, physicality, the senses, and also about methodicalness and one step at a time and being patient and thorough and super grounded. So yeah, that's an interesting one for me, that you have your sun there, so that is all going to be really innate to you on the one hand, but on the other hand, because it's your north node, there's going to be something that is, north node is really something we have to aspire to. There's something beyond our reach about our north node, because that's the spiritual journey, right? Is we're always pursuing a greater unfoldment. And so I was actually thinking about this with you, Ava, sometime, because I'm a little perplexed by when you have your sun and your north node in the same sign and house, because there's that dual. It's going to be totally natural to you, but there's going to be something that's still calling you that you need to reach for. Does any of that, do you have a sense for any of that?
Yeah, definitely. And well, just to say, so my sun is in the 10th and my north node's in the 9th. I don't know if that would.
Oh yeah, that makes a difference. Oh yeah, that makes a big difference. Okay. So yeah, I think that then points to, sorry, I thought your sun was in the 9th. So sun is in the 10th, which is about career and developing career, which you're very oriented towards. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe it's more about also keeping your attention and intention and putting energy towards the 9th house, which is really about understanding and cultivating wisdom and a worldview. So maybe not getting too caught up in yes, pursuing career, but not letting that be all consuming. Right. That would definitely be part of it. Which living at a retreat center is a really good way to do that. Well done. Yeah, good question.
Thank you. We have a question from Duncan as well.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Duncan.
So he says, I have Jupiter and Neptune in the second house in Sagittarius. Would the Jupiter and Sagittarius give a double whammy? What might that look like in the second house?
Yes, that would give it a double whammy for sure. Is your Jupiter and Neptune, how close are they to each other? Are they on top of each other, or are they some ways apart? It'll probably take you a minute or two to reply to that. But yes, that gives a double whammy. So whenever we have related planets and signs and houses together, that is an emphasis of that energy, as is when we have two planets or more really close to each other. That gives it an intensity and an extra punch. So well, I can tell you how I think that might manifest in your life, but how do you think that manifests in your life?
He says that they're very close together.
That they're very close together. Yeah, I don't want to give away your own understanding, because it's much more interesting what your experience is of this. So maybe we'll come back to you, Duncan, because it'll probably take you a minute to type. And other people who know Duncan are welcome to add their insights too. It's always very, very rewarding to hear other people's perspectives. And we have the good fortune to live here at Clear Sky Retreat Center, where Martin's an outstanding astrologer, and through AstroDharma, a lot of people, Richard Nathaniel is a great astrologer. I don't know, a lot of people have really come to embrace and know a lot about AstroDharma. So we have some great conversations about different things in different people's charts, and it's really helpful to hear different people's perspectives.
One idea that Duncan shared is, he says money tends to come easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I would say that is definitely... So second house is about resources and values, and I think you are abundantly endowed with both of those things. You know, some people kind of don't really know what their values are and sort of struggle to give their life meaning, and I don't think that has ever been a problem for you for the 20 years or so that I've known you, and from what it sounds like your life was before I knew you. And same, as you say, yeah, with money, you kind of just, I need to go make some money, and you do, and you come back and you have more than what you need. So yeah, that's a great example of how Jupiter can bring abundance. So especially in the second house, which is about resources, that's a little bit of a cash cow. If you, it's never that simple, because I'm sure you have aspects coming off those planets which will influence that, and it's never, all good, but yeah, enjoy it.
Yes, we have a question from Cara. She says,
Cara.
"Thank you, Kata.
You're welcome.
How might you, sorry, it just popped up. How might you describe South Node conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius in the 8th house?" And then she clarifies, "My sense is that Neptune somehow confuses the directness of Sagittarius, and at the same time I also have Jupiter conjunct Uranus in the 7th in Sagittarius, so again an outsourcing or perhaps not completely owned theme to Sagittarius."
Oh, okay. So the first one was South Node conjunct Neptune in
the 8th house in Sagittarius.
Let's just go one at a time. Which your points are well taken, Cara. Like, it all fits together. And as we were saying before, we have to look at kind of one constellation at a time to sort of break it down, and then look at the other one and then see how they work together and how they work with everything else. So South Node conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius in the 8th house. So South Node conjunct Neptune. So South Node's our family conditioning, and in Sagittarius, so you come from a very international family, involved in diplomacy, and you lived and traveled a lot as a girl and as a young woman, as did your family. So that speaks to that part of the South Node in Sagittarius in the 8th house. Yeah, so 8th house always speaks to things going on beneath the surface, and you've said a bit about, you've shared before a bit about, every family has its skeletons in its closet, and then if someone's in a position like being in the diplomatic service, there's a very important a very important presentation that one needs to make that is very non-8th house, very proper and respectable and safe, I guess we'll say. And then, so all those family secrets get more repressed than perhaps someone who isn't under that kind of public pressure. So that would be the South Node in the 8th house. And then the Neptune conjunct Neptune is maybe the lower manifestations of Neptune are confusion and delusion and fantasy. So that might point to a lot of confusion around the difference between the presentation and the feelings of what is actually going on in the family. And then the Neptune might also be the calling towards resolving that through a spiritual practice or a spiritual path. And then could you run through the second part of 7th house?
Yeah, so Cara, she goes on to say, "My sense is that the Neptune somehow confuses the directness of Sagittarius, and at the same time, I also have Jupiter conjunct Uranus in the 7th in Sagittarius. So again, an outsourcing or perhaps not completely owned theme to Sagittarius."
Jupiter conjunct Uranus in the 7th house in Sagittarius. Yeah, so what we have in the 7th house is our what we often project onto partners in our lives. So this may be romantic partners or other people who we're close to, like business partners. And yes, whatever we have in the 7th house, we do tend to project onto someone else. So, wow, Jupiter conjunct Uranus. So Jupiter in Sag is a double whammy on this Sag expansive energy. And then with Uranus in there, that makes it really pack a punch, because Uranus is transformation through revolution. So there may be a tendency to project that onto other people, although you do have quite a revolutionary nature yourself, Cara, and a very expansive nature too. So your instincts, Sagittarian style instincts, are probably right. I'd look at your really close relationships and see, who ends up manifesting those energies and how in your close relationships. Yeah, sounds like fun. And Jupiter's not it's not that Jupiter, well, yeah, Jupiter can be direct. So some of the Jupiters are Taurus. They often, Sag people often have a lot of friends because they're so interesting and they have this expansive quality, and so they're magnanimous and interesting, and so they're really a lot of fun to be around. So they often have a lot of friends, but not necessarily a lot of close relationships, because that expansive nature kind of keeps things at a distance, right? But they are known for being kind of tactless, because they'll just call it like they see it, which can kind of hurt sometimes if you're on the receiving end. So they can be direct that way, but not in the immediate, because they're always kind of going on to the next thing in relationships. So I hope that gives you somewhere to go on, Kara. Is that all the questions for now?
That is, yes.
Okay. Okay, so I also have Sagittarius in the 7th house, and let's see, so that's where my moon is. So I kid you not, I think maybe out of, I haven't counted, but let's say I've had 5 significant relationships in my life, or 6 or something. I think probably 4 of them were Cancers, which rules the moon. And so it's so interesting how these things manifest in our lives. And then they have often been, very expansive type personalities, very explorative. And so, as Kara is indicating, part of the challenge for me is to not outsource that energy, to enjoy that energy myself, because it is a very amazing energy and an important one to have in our lives. That kind of expansion, that kind of, a vision in our lives. We all want and need that. So thank you so much for joining us for Sagittarius, Jupiter, and the 9th house. And if you'd like to learn more about AstroDharma, please tune in next time for Capricorn, the best sign. Just kidding, I'm Capricorn. And check out planetdharma.com/AstroDharma to learn more about AstroDharma, to learn more about our awesome online AstroDharma course. And there's some free tasters there for you to check out and enjoy. So as always, may all of our efforts benefit all beings and bring us all to complete enlightenment.